Okay, I was on TikTok the other day and Shane Lance made this video.
Right, 5 desert island plugins. I like that this is like a pseudo trend.
Okay, so it's a very interesting concept. You're on a desert island and you only have the choice of working with 5 mixing plugins to mix a song. So I replied to this video on TikTok sharing my top 5 desert island plugins, but I decided to do a full video explaining to you why I chose those plugins to begin with. And the plugin I chose for my saturation plugin is not what you think. So stick around for this one. And while I share these plugins with you, think of the plugins you would use if you were stuck on a desert island. And this is actually a very good exercise to do to mix a song with limitations. So you can maximize your mixing potential by getting to know your plugins better and the tools you work with, just to get the best out of these tools. And I actually made a full mixing course using only stock Cubase plugins. This one is called the Ultimate Cubase Mixing Masterclass. If you want to jump in, I'm going to leave the link below, and also a 40% off coupon code since you're watching this video. Again, the link is down below. So let's jump in Cubase and look at my top 5 desert island mixing plugins. Hey, what's going on? Chris Lim here from Mixdown Online. Hope you're gonna enjoy this video. Now, the way I selected those plugins is to cover the 5 type of effects that I work with all the time when mixing: EQ, compression, saturation, delay, and reverb. Okay, so I needed those plugins to cover those types of effects, except for the first one, which is Sound ID by SonarWorks, which will calibrate my studio monitors according to the room I mix in. So I use it all the time when mixing on my studio monitors and on some headphones that I work with. The Sennheiser HD650, I have a custom profile for Sound ID. So Sound ID will flat out the frequency response of these headphones. So this will be my first plugin, the first plugin of my choice if I was to mix a song with only 5 plugins. So that leaves me only 4 spots to cover: EQ, reverb, delay, saturation, and compression. So let's go to plugin number 2. And this one is the Sheps Omnichannel. It's a channel strip made by Waves. And I do love this plugin a lot, and I do work with it a lot as well. It's like the most complete channel strip that I've worked with so far. It has a saturation module, which is not the saturation I mentioned earlier. Okay, this will come after. The saturation on this one sounds actually very good. So there's also a gate, 2 de-essers, a analog type 4-band EQ, and also a compressor. And the cool thing about that compressor, which in this case would be my main compressor, is that I have the choice between 3 styles of compressors: a VCA compressor, a FET compressor, and also a Nopto compressor, which is actually pretty nice. And the whole plugin, if you insert it on a stereo channel, can be used in stereo mode, in dual mono mode, which is very practical also. And I kind of like to use a dual mono on a drum bus for compression. So this way the left side and right side are compressed separately. Okay, so they are not linked together. So that adds a bit more movement to the sound. And also MS for mid-side compression. And all those modules can be used in stereo, dual mono, or mid-side. You also have external and internal sidechain if you want to. So that is the Sheps Omni channel. The next one on the list is the FabFilter Pro Q3. It's an EQ plugin, transparent plugin, very good for surgical type EQ, boosting, all sorts of EQ work. And the fact that it's very easy to work with is why I chose this one. I can add up to 24 bands if I want to. It's very easy to create, to select the frequencies you want to work with. And there's also a dynamic EQ available per band, which is quite nice and very easy to set up, you know. So I can set that up right away. And there you go. Now I'm using the dynamic EQ side for this band. And now there's no audio. I just wanted to show you the visual. And talking about visual of the plugin, it looks amazing. It's an amazing, good looking plugin, and again, it's very easy to work with. A good alternative in Cubase is Frequency. Frequency is a stock plugin out of Cubase Pro. Works very well. It has 8 bands that you can work with, and there's also a dynamic EQ on each band, which is again very practical. In some ways, it's more flexible than Pro Q3. In other ways, it's not. For example, something that I like with the Frequency EQ is the dynamic EQ side, which is way more flexible. So you have access to all compression parameters like the ratio, the attack, the release time, and so on. So it makes it very, very cool to work with, especially if you like to work with dynamic EQ. I would be happy to work with one or the other when it comes to a general EQ as part of my Desert Island top 5 mixing plugins. Now I have 2 spots left, and I need to cover delay, reverb, and saturation, okay, with 2 plugins. Let's start with delay. I'm gonna go with the Echo Boy by Soundtoys, and this is literally my favorite delay plugin. And there it goes. It's a analog echo processor, like it says. So it's going to give me a bunch of different delay styles, different type of tones, from a studio tape, an Echoplex, a space echo type of delay, DM2, which is a bit more darker. It's very cool, very flexible. Also, you can use it in mono, stereo, add a ping pong delay, dual echo, single echo, rhythmic type of echo also. So there's so much you can do with this plugin. It's very, very nice. So let's just solo this track. There you go. If you want like delays with character and tone, this is what this plugin is gonna give you, and this is why I like to work with this plugin. And on top of that, this is the plugin I'm gonna use as a saturator, okay? I would go with a plugin like Decapitator by Soundtoys again, if I had to choose my favorite type of saturation plugin. But in this case, since I only have access to 5 plugins, I need to make a choice, and this is not necessarily my favorite saturation plugin per se, but a very good one, okay? Which surprisingly can be used on a lot of instruments. So let me show it to you on the bass guitar that I have right here. Okay, so I have Echo Boy inserted on a bass track. So the trick is to eliminate the echoes, because I don't want to use the delay part of the plugin, but only the saturation part. And this is very cool with this plugin. You have access to saturation, so you can saturate the echo, okay, the delay you work with. And since I have access to different delay styles and tones, that also applies to the saturation. So I'm gonna end up with a bunch of different types of saturation, which is great. So I bring the echo to 0 milliseconds, okay, by bringing the option to time, bring that down to 0, so I don't have any repeats, so no feedback whatsoever. And then I just work with this saturation part of the plugin. So let me just solo the bass. And let's bring the mix to dry. So that is the bass sound, and I'm gonna add some saturation. There you go. Sounds great. Honestly, it's the type of saturation that I like on the bass. And from that point, I can just experiment, try different tones. That's pretty cool. And I can even, edit the style, the tone style that I have, and just to tweak the EQ of that tone and, tone shape that to my taste if I want to. So it's pretty cool. So the trick also is to play with the input level and the output level and the amount of saturation you want. So the more saturation you add, of course, the more harmonics it's going to create, more saturation you'll end up with. And also, the more input level you get into that saturation module, the more the signal is going to saturate and give you that type of effect, which is great. So this is actually a very good option if you're looking for a good delay, but also good saturation. So if you own that plugin already, start using it as a saturator. It's quite nice. Now, the last plugin is a reverb plugin because I need one. And the one that I chose is not necessarily my favorite reverb plugin, but the most practical plugin as far as reverb goes for my needs, and that is the FabFilter Pro R reverb. It's an algorithmic reverb, and it gives me all the main reverb tones and styles that I need. So that goes from a chamber to a room to a hall to a plate reverb. So, you know, it covers all the main styles, and it's very flexible also, simple parameters, and it also has an EQ, you know, right into the reverb itself, a kind of a Pro Q3 type of EQ in a way, as far as the looks goes, and the way the EQ works. So you can tone shape the reverb as you want by just EQing the reverb itself, and also tone shape the decay rate, which is pretty nice also, and this is what is in blue. Okay, so that is the EQ for the decay rate, which is quite nice. So let's just have a quick listen on the snare drum. If I bypass it, if I had the choice to work with only one reverb that will cover most of my reverb needs, in this point in time, I would go with the Pro R by FabFilter. I'm probably going to get the question on why I did not use Autotune or Melodyne, you know, to pitch correct vocals, for example. The reason is because I use Cubase, and Very Audio, which is the pitch correction system, I would say, in Cubase is integrated. So it doesn't work as a plugin. So that's why I don't have pitch correction on my list, because it's integrated in Cubase, which is why you should work with Cubase if you're not already. Now, if you want to know my top 10 Cubase mixing features, I'm going to encourage you to watch the following video. Share and like if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Until next time, take care and see you.